Welcome to a new episode of Coptic Civilization. I'm Michael Saad. Today's topic is ACTS, a Global Theological School. ACTS stands for St. Athanasius and St. Cyril Coptic Orthodox Theological School. And our guest today is His Grace Bishop Kyrillos, Dean of the school. Welcome, Bishop Kyrillos.
Thank you very much for this invitation.
Your Grace, I'm grateful and blessed and honored by your gracious acceptance to be our guest today in Coptic Civilization program.
It's a pleasure for me.
Also our guest is Dr. Jacquie Hart, Chief of Staff of the Theological School, and also serves in similar capacities in the diocese. Welcome, Dr. Hart.
Thank you.
It's a great opportunity because theological education has been always one of the few pillars that kept the Coptic Orthodox Church alive and well for 2,000 years. St. Mark the Evangelist, soon after he established the first Coptic church in Alexandria and baptized a few people, he established the school. Of course, no strange, because he himself was a disciple of the great teacher, our Lord Jesus Christ. Your Grace, 2,000 years of theological education in the Coptic Church. Of course, there were ups and downs.
Yes.
How did it start from St. Mark and brought us to this time, 2,000 years later?
Wonderful question. So from the time of St. Mark, we know that there was some education in Alexandria. The church grew very quickly during his time. We know that the first dean, at least recorded in the history, comes about 176 AD. And from that time till about 450, we know many things about the School of Alexandria. But afterwards, there's much silence, and it disappears from our knowledge about what was the education like, especially during the times of persecution. We don't hear about any school until the 1900s, or more precisely in 1893, when Archdeacon Habib Girgis, who was recently canonized in the church, was appointed to start the new school, the clerical school, by His Holiness Pope Kyrillos IV. I'm sorry, I have to actually say, by Pope Kyrillos V. He was a disciple of Pope Kyrillos IV, and he was very instrumental during the papacy of 4 successive popes in his teaching. And as we commemorated him just a couple days ago, most appropriate that it was one of his passions and his mission to reestablish the school. And I think he was the icon of theological studies in the 19th century. And the one thing that he said, if there is one project that the church must focus on during that time, it was in establishing and developing this theological school. This was also the passion and the mission of His Holiness Pope Shenouda III of blessed memory, who since 1987 was searching as to how to establish theological schools throughout the world, outside of Egypt and the lands of immigration. And he had started writing letters to some of the people here, Bun Agustinus Hanna and others, in 1987, to see where the school should be located in America, how many should be, 1 or 2 or more. And it was in his blessed visit in 1989 where he had established 2 schools, one on the East Coast and one here in Los Angeles. And I think that was the wonderful moment where there's the light of theological studies now burning from that time until today. And there was, in that period of time, since 1989 and now, it had its own ups and downs, but we are very grateful and blessed to have the leadership and the guidance of His Eminence Metropolitan Serapion, who, since his coming here in 1995, was working and planning for a school to be developed and in the highest levels of academic excellence, as well as serving the diocese and abroad. And I think this was most clear in 2008 with the establishment of the library and in the visit of His Holiness Pope Tawadros II in October of 2015.
That's a great time to remember the visit by His Holiness Pope Tawadros II to Claremont and the inauguration of the St. Athanasius and St. Cyril Coptic Orthodox Theological School over there. And we are delighted that Your Grace ordained soon after in order to not only serve as Dean of the theological school, but also as an auxiliary bishop in Los Angeles, serving broader areas in Sunday school and youth ministry and other ministries. And we see the fruits of your labor of love across. Then we will show now a short video from just to get a flavor of that inauguration event on the 19th of October 2015 in Claremont, the inauguration of ACTS. ACTS is the acronym of St. Athanasius, AC, Athanasius Cyril T.S. Theological School.
Your Holiness Pope Tawadros II, distinguished, I am honored and pleased to be in this celebration for the inauguration of St. Athanasius and Cyril Coptic Orthodox Theological School. And I will speak shortly in 2 points. Number 1 is a word of gratitude. We thank God who helped us to come to this point in the development of the theological education within the Diocese of Los Angeles to achieve this level. And we are very grateful to His Holiness Pope Tawadros for his vision, which inspired us and encouraged us to continue on this line. And this, I will speak about it later on, about his vision regarding theological education. We are grateful for Claremont Graduate University and President Robert Schultz for their help, and also Claremont School of Theology and President Jeffrey Cohn for their help and support for us, which we didn't expect things will move so quickly and so smoothly. And we will see from 2 memoranda of understanding, which we will sign today with the blessing of His Holiness, how we are moving in the direction to achieve a scholarly level of our theological schools, which dreamed of. I started this process when I came here in 1995, and we started this process gradually by building a faculty, and we'll choose some to study and to reach the highly scholarly level, to build the library, to find a place. And which lead me to the third point of gratitude to Father John Paul, the Dean of the school, and the group working with him, and also with the board of the school. And when he told me a part of the celebration of today that I will be as a president of the school. So being a bishop, have been being a bishop for 30 years now, I know exactly what bishop does, but I don't know what president to do. So I asked him. He said that is the president to sit next to the Pope, and the deans will do the work. And that's what you see. He have done everything, and you're just sitting next to His Holiness, taking the blessing. And I trust him and trust his knowledge, his intelligence, her dedication to the church.
Genevran en Meviot en Shiri en Verneva is Owab Onoti and Ot Amin. In the name of the Father, Son, of the Holy Spirit, one God, Amin. Your Graces, the Bishops, President Scholt, President Kohn, Deans, faculty, student, and distinguished guests. I would like to thank you all for such a warm welcome. It's my pleasure to be among you today to hear all of your accomplishment, visions, and future plans. I am well aware that you have been working for many years for further theological studies and Coptic studies, and for this I am greatly pleased. This world needs strong theological education, more now than ever. I am greatly pleased by the strong emphasis of education that we are seeing in the global Christian Church. The importance of knowing what one believes cannot be emphasized enough. Without knowledge, how does one even believe? We have many traditions from which we can obtain knowledge. We have Holy Scripture, we have apostolic writings, we have traditions. And as Saint Athanasius wrote to his disciple, Saint Serapion, in his first letter on the Holy Spirit. But beyond these scripture sayings, let us look at the very tradition, teaching, and faith of the universal church from the beginning, which the Lord gave, the apostles preached, and the fathers kept. Saint Athanasius, the 20th Pope of Church of Alexandria, is famous for his short saying that contain eternal truths. Christ gave us the perfect teaching, healing of soul, body, and spirit. His sacrifice on the cross, his resurrection from the dead, his church, and the eternal life, all these the apostles preached, both in word and in letter, as St. Paul explained in the second epistle of Thessaloniki. Therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the tradition which you were taught, whether by word or our epistle. The great apostle explains that all the Christian faithful are to preserve not only what Christ did and taught, but also what was said or written by the apostles themselves. Because as St. John concludes in his Gospel, not everything Christ did and said was recorded by the apostles. There is a living body of tradition which must be received in and through the church, which he established. And it were these teachings and traditions that were preserved by the fathers of the church.
And the school has been expanding since then. Mm-hmm. Dr. Hart, what's your take on the function of the school and the activity? You are both a Copt and you have family. And what did the school mean to you since its inauguration?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the show and to visit with you about that. I'm delighted. I look at it as a personal blessing to be part of the school and help in any way for its growth, working with His grace and under His leadership. So I met the school, if you will, early on in 2015 in a casual conversation with His grace. And as with many other people, although excited and delighted that the school would be starting and growing, I was distracted with life, you know, everything from being a mother of 3 children and working full time and things that in the day-to-day that occupy our mind and sadly at times our heart, that we're busy with life. And as life went on the following year, I met again His grace at a youth spiritual competition in the diocese, and we began talking, and I had the opportunity and the blessing to begin volunteering with the school, and then fast forward now working directly with him. So it's been a true passion and spiritual enrichment for me. So you mentioned family, so I began volunteering with the school and learning more about our history and the beginnings of the School of Alexandria, certainly, and the road and the faith journey of our early church fathers, and felt really moved to learn more. I became conscious and self-aware of my own personal ignorance in this space and wanted to benefit from knowing more about the historical roots of our faith tradition and our beloved faith. So fast forward to this summer where I began, I took an intensive. The school, we'll talk about later in the program what the school offers and its size and so on and so forth. But my personal journey, I took a 1-week intensive in May when His Grace Bishop Raphael came from Egypt. And I was thrilled to have the opportunity to learn from him during his visit. And not having had the opportunity to be kind of in his vicinity as others have, him being the secretary of the Holy Synod in Egypt. My family emigrated when I was a young child, when I was 5, and many of my siblings were here born in the U.S. And I didn't really have the treasure of really being in a local church, growing up, walking to the church or going to the church with that degree of regularity. In fact, I didn't have a Coptic Orthodox church near me till I was the ripe old age of 10, when Saint Anthony was consecrated by the Pope back in 1978. So anyway, fast forward to this class, I was so touched by it and learned how much I didn't know. My son, I have a son and a daughter in their 20s, and then a younger daughter still in her teens. He attended, and then fast forward to now, my older children and I are collectively taking classes in the school, and it's the best gift I think I have ever given myself, and that the school, through the blessings of our God, has given me to be personally enriched and really have an insatiable appetite now for learning more about our beloved faith.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You don't know how great the thing is until you taste it, until you live it, until you absorb it and talk about it. It's a great family bonding power that a few members of the family take a particular course together and at the dinner table talk about it.
Yes, yes.
And it's a wonderful thing.
It is, and I think it's also increasing. Like we have, for example, one of the servants in the church in the diocese who started taking a class, and then after enjoying the course, asked his wife also to join him in taking the course, and now his daughter also is continuing. So I think this type of dynamic is very enriching for the whole family.
Yes, the whole family grow together in fellowship and in knowledge and in the ministry, because the more they learn, the more they can serve also, especially in this challenging intellectual environment.
Exactly.
And so on. What courses are offered in the school? Like what topics are covered?
We try to cover all of the basic courses that we have. Of course, Old Testament and New Testament as basic courses. The liturgy. So with the exception of the biblical courses, most of the courses that are offered in the school, it's very hard to find anywhere else. Yes. Not just in America, but even if someone would like to study Coptic liturgy, very few places outside of Egypt that can be done. So we have liturgical studies, we have patristics, which will cover the major fathers that lived throughout the history of the church. And we have a special focus on St. Athanasius and St. Cyril, which we had a special course for them, as well as the fathers that contributed to that Alexandrian patristic heritage. We also have the history of the church. Most schools you will have a general history, but we're blessed to have someone like Deacon Severus, who is a specialist in the Coptic church history, as well as Dr. Gaudet Gabra, who also give courses with us and at Claremont.
Yeah.
We have courses in apologetics, which is growing in its interest, I think, throughout the world, and especially with our servants here, as well as dogmatics, which will be next week. We will start that course with His Eminence Metropolitan Serapion, my weakness, as well as Father Anthony and Father Kyrillos. I think we have a good, broad base of courses that are very unique, I think, and enriching. We also have a number of intensive courses in English and in Arabic. So Dr. Jacquie mentioned the course by Amba Raphael, which was offered in Arabic, in Liturgical Studies and Liturgical History. We also were blessed to have Abuna Athanasius Me'eri, who comes every year in the fall and gives an intensive course as well in Liturgical History. We've had Father George Dragas, who came to give a course, intensive course in St. Athanasius. And we've found that the interest in those intensive courses have also increased in the last couple of years. We
are world leaders in each of these fields.
Yes, and
that's wonderful.
And that's why we ask them.
That's wonderful. And some courses are available online. Some courses are available in person in the classroom.
Yes,
and currently in Claremont.
Exactly, and some are also available, as according to the flexibility of the student. Yeah. So they have self-paced classes. They can log in any time and finish the course, at their leisure, either more advanced or one day at a time or one lecture at a time.
But there is always a test at the end.
There's an exam or paper.
Or term paper.
Paper, yes, research paper.
Yeah.
We also have a study abroad courses, which every year we have at least one. We have one course that went to Egypt, where we visited all of the ancient monasteries, or the major sites, from Wadi Natrun, Alexandria, of course, Merimina, in Mariut, and then all the way down to Luxor and Aswan.
I remember in those visits in Egypt, in each site you had a world class professor giving a lecture about that place and its history and geography and treasures.
Yes, we were blessed almost 20 different lectures that we had, including our fathers, the bishops, some of the monks who are living there, but as well as like Dr. Stephen Davis from Yale University. We had Dr. Stephen not Stephen Emmel. We had people who were working not just from Yale University, but Leiden in Der Surien or St. Shenouda. So we were very blessed in that trip. So that was the summer course, and then, that was in December, and then just recently we went to Jerusalem, and we took 10 days there, also visiting the biblical sites there, with one of the professors from here, Abuna Daniel. So this was also very fruitful, and we plan to have the next one next summer, and that will also be in Greece and Rome to visit the journeys of St. Paul.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dr. Hart, please can you tell us, okay, I'm taking so many courses in areas of interest to me personally, but then what? Do I get a certificate? Do I get a degree?
Sure, absolutely. So the answer is yes to both. So we've found that some people are interested in auditing classes, and what that means is they can attend the lectures, as you said earlier, either live during the time that the lecturer is speaking, either from a remote location using Zoom technology or where the professor is located. It could be done asynchronously, so if they're working or on a night shift or in a different time zone, as we'll share, we have students from around the globe that are enrolled in our theological school, so they can watch recorded lectures later and so on and so forth. And as Sayedna said, it could be self-paced, where if their schedule doesn't permit, they could dedicate a day of the week or what have you to go through the course requirements. To your point, if they wanted to go through it just for personal enrichment and maybe not do the exams and the finals and the quizzes and the papers and reflections and so on, they can audit the class, benefit and be personally enriched from the material without doing it for a course grade. If the student wants to pursue a degree with us, currently we have a Master's of Theological Studies, or what's called an MTS, which, as Sayedna said, is a beautiful survey, if you will, of all things patristics and apologetics and Old Testament, New Testament, church history, liturgical theology, so on and so forth, in ways, delivered in ways that are really rare, in a sense that this type of coursework, and through the Coptic perspective, if you will, doesn't exist almost nowhere in the world, or very few places in the world. So if you wanted to do a Master's in Theological Studies, which is a survey of all things like that, you do not have to have prior experience, you know, in your undergrad doesn't have to be in religion or theology. It could be in anything. And you can pursue a Master's in Theological Studies, which will also include an intro course to Coptic and intro to research and writing and so forth. That coursework, if you want to do the MTS, you can take it slow and easy and take one class per term, or you could do it full time, which is you know, up to 4 courses per term, in which case you'll be done in about a year. So we do have an MTS in a year program for those who want to commit specifically to doing this. You could finish it in 12 months. Some people take 15 or 18 months or longer, so it could be as slow or as fast as you want. As it relates to demographics, as the people who are interested in pursuing the MTS, what we've seen is really a remarkable cross-section of people. We have those who are currently finishing their undergrad and maybe want to begin taking courses with us. They don't officially graduate with a master's, of course, until their bachelor's is done, but sometimes people concurrently enroll and start kind of sampling the coursework or taking an intensive or a study abroad that counts for credit. We also have people who are in a gap year. Maybe they have a gap year because of, you know, the planning to take their MCAT or LSAT or some other admissions test of in our country or another country. We have those who are between jobs or looking to maybe change careers. Then, interestingly enough, we have people who are empty nesters, people who've raised their children and find themselves at home with looking at, you know, what next to pursue, what else is going to kind of enrich their soul and give them kind of meaning and purpose and follow their calling and deepen their faith and so forth. So we have, as Sayedna said, couples now who are home alone that are enrolling together. We have a lovely couple that just did that and are enrolling in 2 courses each in the fall. And what a great opportunity, as you mentioned earlier, to have that dinner conversation together instead of potentially, dialoguing about the next Netflix binge opportunity.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. So I can get a degree, Masters of Divinity, of Theology, and then if I want to have this as a career or as a ministry, and I would like to go to a PhD program in after I finish with Acts, then Dr. Hart, where can I find a PhD program to continue my studies? Suppose I want to do a PhD in patristics or in another subject. For example, His Grace Bishop Kyrillos received his PhD from University of Notre Dame School of Theology in the study of the literature of Saint Cyril. I know the PhD title of Your Grace is The Great Archpriest, Saint Cyril of Alexandria's Approach to the Priesthood of Christ. That's a tremendous title, but let me ask Dr. Hart first and then go back to your PhD. Perhaps we should actually give it a whole episode to talk about it. But Dr. Hart, are there universities that would acknowledge the master's degree so I can continue to a PhD program?
The answer is absolutely yes, and actually this is more up in the wheelhouse, as they say, of His Grace, and I'd love to defer the answer to him. He, in his wisdom and his certainly affiliations globally, has been working to sign and to officially, through Pope Tewodros and beyond, and through His Eminence and so forth, sign official MOUs with multiple universities in order to do just that. So we look at it more like a pyramid. So the base of the pyramid are laity, like me, who are interested in learning more and having that true Coptic Orthodox theological perspective applied, if you will, to a theological studies degree, which is the MTS. If then people want to continue, as you mentioned, to what's called an MDiv, or a Master's in Divinity, or beyond that to a doctoral program, there are MOUs that have been signed and are a growing number of institutions that we're looking to align with, where a person can continue perhaps and go on to do scholarly work. As your book alluded to in the context of the growth of this school that you published about 5 years ago, a subset of people, as you kind of go up the pyramid, will want to do more scholarly work. Maybe they want to translate manuscripts and go on to take and become fluent in the translation of manuscripts in original languages. Perhaps they want to write books, perhaps they want to teach at this school or others. And so there's a large movement under really the leadership of His Grace, so I'll turn it over to him to do just that, so that we could offer multiple pathways for people who want to continue and further their scholarly studies.
Great. Your Grace,
yes.
What's your take on this?
So ever since His Eminence had me to go to study in my master's, I used to get phone calls at least once a month from different people who are interested in studying or started studying in a different program and wanted to complete and go to do their PhD. And since my graduation from Notre Dame, that only increased to the point where originally for the school, I was hoping to delay a little bit in starting the school, but because the interest was so high and people were contemplating going somewhere else or didn't have another place to study, so that's why it pushed us in full gear to work and establish the school very quickly. And many of them, so the numbers are fluctuating. There are some people who started who are thinking to do just stop with the MTS, they continue with an MDiv. Other people who we thought would do the MDiv now are going to do the DMin, the Doctor of Ministry. And there are other people who I didn't think would continue for the PhD, but they are already planning to do PhDs, whether it be in Claremont or in schools in Europe. And so we've also talked with different schools in Italy and working in other places, so that people could continue, whether it is in Bible, whether it's in liturgy, whether it's in patristics, and it's not an easy endeavor, but it definitely we are trying to find the best place for every person.
Yeah, I find it amazing, self-motivated individuals.
Mm-hmm.
I hear, oh, I finished the master's here at Loyola Marymount or at ACTS or at UCLA, and I'm going to Göttingen University in Germany to study Coptic manuscripts and do a PhD in Saint Wisa,
Mm-hmm.
the disciple of Saint Shenouda, what his sermons.
Mm-hmm.
And these are true, real examples.
Right. And
The Reverend Dr. Tim Vivian did his PhD at University of California, Santa Barbara, on the sermons of Saint Peter, the Bishop of Alexandria, the 17th Patriarch. So you get these self-motivated people. Some of them are Copts, some are non-Copts, but they are amazing. And nobody here until they are halfway through their PhD or even after they finished. But if I try to convince them, or anybody tries to convince them to do it in the first place, there is no way. But they are self-motivated, like divinely inspired.
Exactly, and it's a sacrifice, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money that's put into it on their own. And some we've had in their second career, so they will start their first career, and then until they can prepare themselves, or that the point where they can financially go for a PhD or a master's.
Right.
And those people have the zeal and the enthusiasm to complete sometimes earlier and more advanced than others who have planned this as their first career.
When your Grace worked on the St. Cyril's approach to the priesthood of Christ, the product of St. Cyril's sermons that you studied and perhaps translated and analyzed and wrote about it a thesis and I hope books in the future, this is for the glory of God. This is for ministry, because priests and preachers would read your dissertation and Tim Vivian's analysis of Saint Peter of Alexandria's sermons, or I mean, there's hundreds of these examples, not hundreds, maybe tens, around the world, and they feed into our understanding of what the patristics fathers contributed. Please, I'd like to hear from you how acts as a theological school, glorify God, build the church. I know St. Mark started the first school, but please elaborate a little to us.
Well, maybe I can borrow from St. Cyril,
Okay.
because throughout many of his writings, that he says the major role of the priest and the bishop is in teaching the people and preaching the gospel. And of course the second half, just like the liturgy, the first part is the liturgy of the word, and then the liturgy of the Eucharist, where we have the sacrifice of Christ. So every pastor, every servant, every priest, even every parent, that they preach, they teach to their children and to those who are in need. And then there's a sacrifice at work for the glory of God. And I think that our church is one of the best in the world in its service. It was famous for its teaching, where all of the leaders, world leaders, would come to Alexandria to study,
Yes.
Whether it be St. Basil or St. Gregory or many of the other unknown, people who were not known, and they would take from the treasures there and serve in their capacity wherever they are. And I believe that our church has great leaders and teachers, from His Holiness to His Eminence to the servants in every parish. We have some of the brightest, most capable people that, even though, yes, St. Cyril or St. Gregory or the Coptic liturgy is not easy to study, but we have the most talented and brightest people that can put these jewels and share them with the rest of the world. Because there's, when I visit many of the other theological schools, I find there's still people who are hungry for deep, enriching theological education, and it's harder and harder to find. There are some great schools in the world, but the number of those schools are decreasing, as well as the number of programs within the school. So we're hoping that we can, through this effort, to add and to contribute to that. And we do need to publish. We need to, the translations, for example, of St. Cyril, very hard to find. Very few people in the world working on them. And in some cases, we have more in Arabic than in English. So we're trying to make available in at least those two languages, if not more, this heritage of the fathers, for St. Athanasius, for St. Cyril, for St. Didymus, for many of the other saints that we have.
That's great. We always look forward to progress of Acts in all of its ministry and products and services and fellowship. The viewer may like to go to the website of Acts, which will show on the screen, and it is www.actslibrary.org. Acts Library, one word, Acts and Library. So over there you can read the courses that will be offered on the next term is the 29th of August. And you can enroll and read the 5 or 6 courses that will be offered, and enroll, submit. If you are the first-time student, you need to go through a formal process of application. You have to do it, therefore you have to do it as soon as possible. Might be a day or two later, would be the school may accept that, but you have to act quickly. And visit the website. It's very rich, very interesting. It has also pictures from previous events, like the inauguration, and also like the graduation, which happened in May 2017.
Yes, 15.
You had 7 graduates.
Yes.
I was honored and blessed to attend the graduation. Dr. Hart, please, would you kindly speak to us about the graduation event, the commencement that was in May 2017.
So we were very blessed to have His Grace and several His Graces and His Eminence come and keynote, as well as the presidents of CGU and CST, which are Claremont School of Theology and Claremont Graduate University, plenty of faculty and priests and family members and so forth. And it was a lovely event because it was the first graduating class since the kind of rebrand of Acts as a school in 2015. So that was the first graduating class. Since then, we have streamlined the Masters of Theological Studies program, as mentioned. You can finish in as quickly, if you will, as 12 courses at 3 units each, which is 36 units. The graduating class completed a 48-unit curriculum. You can stay with us up to 48 units. We're happy to have you, but you can finish in as quickly as 36. The difference being you can apply up to 48 units typically if you're going to transfer to an MDiv or a Masters of Divinity program based on our MOUs with a growing number of institutions. I also wanted to comment on your point about growth. None of this could happen without, obviously, the hand of God and the wisdom and the vision and the leadership of His Eminence, and certainly His Grace, who has, after he was ordained, very recently and became an auxiliary bishop and the dean of the school, has really led a global effort to coordinate with the bishops around the world in this movement so that we could streamline faculty, curriculum, the courses, working with Deacon Severus in kind of being head of that kind of academic review, hand in hand with His Grace. So it's been a remarkable, very, very fast and thorough process and a movement, again, that's growing the school worldwide. To that point, we have about 257 students, which may seem low, but if we look at counts of long-standing, iconic seminaries domestically and abroad, they have about 220 some odd students, some much less than 100 and some just in the couple hundred range. So it's, again, remarkable what the leaders of the school have achieved in such a short period of time. On average, I mentioned the demographics earlier, our student body carries about a couple classes each, some more, some less. So we have about 500 some odd courses being congruently taken by these students. About 10% of our student body are clergy. Obviously, they have a pretty full plate as it is, but they are looking to double down on their studies because many of them come from, engineering, medicine, pharmacy, or law, diverse and accomplished background in a variety of fields, and then are called to the ministry. So they're taking these courses, to your point, self-selected, self-dedicated and committed with just a great passion and zeal, even though one can imagine as shepherds of their flocks and their parishes, they have a quite demanding job as it is. We have students from countries around the world. We're in almost all the continents. We don't have anyone enrolled from Antarctica yet, but we will. Additionally, South America and Asia, we don't have, we've not had students enroll from there yet. But interestingly enough, the student enrollment, these numbers, this growth, has been without investing really any funds in marketing or advertising and the like. It's been really word of mouth. But as we grow the school and as some of the things initiatives that His Grace has outlined continue to grow, we will, through his travel and his initiatives, continue to talk to other colleague bishops around the world and their parishes and their parishioners to become more aware of this real treasure that's growing here in this marketplace. And to your earlier point, every single one of our classes and the entire degree program, which bears repeating, can be done online. So we have students today from Dubai and Ethiopia and across the Middle East and Australia, from every time zone in North America, and a growing, again, a contingency of people from around the world. You do not have to be in Los Angeles. You do not have to be in the same time zone. You do not have to be live. Certainly you can be, but you don't have to be in order to finish the coursework and the degree. And we'd love to see you on one of our study abroad programs or one of our intensives. So back to you.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Show on the screen now the picture of the commencement in May 2017. And as we see in the front row, the graduates, 5 graduates, 2 other graduates were unable to come because they live on the East Coast. But these 5 graduates, 2 priests and 3 laity, and your Grace knows the graduates.
Yes, absolutely. So
the 2 fathers.
Yeah, the 2 fathers. We actually had a couple of the fathers from the Southern Diocese. So Buna Bachom is from the Southern Diocese, and Father Mark is with us from our diocese. Is actually one of the first students that went through the program and took courses consistently and labored from the beginning.
Right.
Ahab, who is in the middle, actually was a graduate from Pope Shenouda Theological Seminary, and wanted to continue, and hopefully also will continue with us doing some great work. Mina, we had adopted him from also the Southern Diocese Seminary, the school there, and originally from Minnesota. And we have Naveen, who is one of the most active servants in the diocese, and originally took a class just for enrichment. She's in her service in apologetics, and found herself in complete will to continue, hopefully for the PhD. And so she was our valedictorian for the first class, and does in everything she does exceptional work. So we're hoping, we're really blessed to have some of the best students, some of the best professors, and the best staff. I was, even with Dr. Jacquie, I measure the school before she came and after she came. There's a different, completely. And as well as the board. You didn't mention that you are one of the prestigious members of our board, who, remember in our first meeting, pretty much guided the boat to sail very quickly. And if it wasn't for your connections with Claremont and involvement with the school there, I'm sure that we wouldn't be where we are, even physically, if it wasn't for that initiative and that labor. So we're really blessed to have. If you look in the picture too, in the corner, you'll find some of the faculty and board members that have been instrumental. Abuna Philemon, for example, he was the first academic dean for Pope Shenouda III, and is teaching liturgics with us, and is just the father for all of the work, as well as Deacon Taviris and many of the other fathers and priests there.
And of course, we see His Eminence Metropolitan Serapion on the right side, followed by His Grace Bishop Raphael, and then Your Grace, and then the president of Claremont School of Theology, and then the president of the Claremont Graduate University. Both of them, all the five, give speeches. It was a wonderful day of completion and achievement and celebration. So may God's name be praised. Christ, the ultimate teacher, and we are the disciples of Christ, or the disciples of the disciples of the disciples of Christ, in receiving all of this richness and in nourishment of the brain and the mind and the soul and the spirit in Christian fellowship. I know you have also some non-Copts in the student body, and I know one or two of them personally, and that's great. So the theological school can also reach out to non-Copts or even non-Christians, that kind of brains and human beings who would like to learn about the Coptic Church, but themselves may not be Copts or Christians, or
Exactly.
and they come and knock at our doors.
I was attending the St. Shenouda conference at UCLA, and there were some people there who were fascinated with. I gave a presentation about the school, and insisted to join the school after just a very brief presentation. We've also had some of the people take courses from Claremont or the broader area, the Christian Methodist. We had a pastor who was retired from the Methodist Church that sat in and audited one of our courses and enjoyed it. And we're encouraging him to take more courses, but we found the interest is always high. I sat in on a number of courses in Claremont School of Theology, and most of the students were asking the same: how can we take more classes? Do you have courses in the Bible? Do you have courses in the history? And we're filling a need and a gap just without going anywhere in Claremont itself.
Yes,
so.
yes. Dr. Jacquie Hart, please, would you speak to us about the faculty, please, of Acts? The composition, special, you can talk about certain names. We did this before. His Grace mentioned a few names and few topics, course titles. Would you like to speak to that a little?
Sure, and I'll fall back certainly on His Grace because he has a lot more knowledge and visibility as well as context. But what I can say is, from the perspective as a student, I have deeply, deeply enjoyed access to really world-renowned faculty, ones that come here literally from Europe, from Boston, from Egypt, from different places around the world that are literally thought leaders, members of the World Council of Churches, just theologians, scholars, people who've written not just books but libraries onto themselves, people that you wouldn't typically have direct access to, and you sit in a room with them live, or if you're out of market, you can do so by via video. It's just been remarkable to me to have kind of up close visibility, access, asking questions, and just getting perspective, bringing a book alive. So here's the author kind of talking to you in a room as if, a fireside chat, if you will. That's been remarkable to me. So His Grace has been diligent, really, in hand selecting, hand picking, kind of a who's who of faculty from around the world to bring the best possible curriculum forward. We also have, as His Grace mentioned, just a litany of remarkable faculty in our own diocese, and of course beyond, as I mentioned. So there are plenty of priests who have gone on to do their own theological studies, who may have come from diverse backgrounds in their kind of when they were laity before they were ordained. People who have gone on to certainly do their doctoral work and scholarly work and so forth, that are around us, like I said, far and wide. Personally, I've benefited most recently from the work of Deacon Severus, who is faculty at Cal State Fullerton. I have taken his research and writing class, and coming up, starting again August 28th is the beginning of our fall semester, his church history class that he teaches. He has Church History 1 and Church History 2. There's Professor Hani Tekla, who's taught for 40 some odd years, God bless him, at UCLA, and is renowned in kind of the Coptic community and leads the Coptic conference at UCLA. So that's been just a sheer joy to do that. I've benefited from the work of Dr. Ramez Mikhail, who has just recently defended his dissertation, and really his body of work in his doctoral writings is around the Coptic liturgy. So again, being up close to that has been remarkable. And of course, Bishop Raphael, as you mentioned earlier, the patristics class, learning from His Grace directly as a faculty member, His Grace Bishop Kyrillos, and his remarkable work on the Church Fathers in general, and his specialty about St. Cyril. Along that, it was a compilation of additional people, Dr. Sarah Marcos, Abuna, Father Kyrillos, Father Anthony Paul, and then a collection of them, as His Grace mentioned earlier, will surround as guest speakers His Eminence in the dogmatics class that's coming up. Father Kyrillos also teaches an introduction to Orthodox spirituality, which is a really fascinating class that causes you really to dig deep on a variety of spiritual questions and do reflections, and of course a research paper on that. Upcoming will be Father Daniel's class. He's the he's an author of his own account, and just a remarkable spiritual guide, truly a guide through the New Testament, and was there on the Jerusalem trip, as His Grace mentioned. There's Dr. George Tadros, who will be teaching Old Testament this semester, and in the spring we'll be doing an apologetics class that navigates both Old and New Testament. So I could go on, and you'll see on our website, flashing again on the screen, actslibrary.org, where you'll see our course offerings semester by semester, and so on. I did want to touch, if you'll allow me, on, I mentioned earlier about how accessible this program is. And I mean that in two ways. Accessible meaning you don't have to be a theologian to start. It really is a survey of all things theology and all of the classes that His Grace mentioned, which will also appear on your screen to show the course offerings and the requirements and a sample schedule of how to complete our MTS program. But additionally, it's accessible because of the course cost. So to walk through that, to take a course at, or through ACTS is $600 for the whole course. That comes down to $200 per unit. Now that's the pricing for this curriculum year, which is 2017-2018. And just to make a point of reference of how important it is for the mission of the school to make this accessible, we are today 1/6 or 1/7 of the cost of other schools, and 1/10 of the cost of some of our MOU partner schools. So their per unit cost is multiples more in the 600 per unit or up to 2,000 per credit hour, as opposed to $600 for the whole course, which is 3 units, so $200 per credit hour. And the reason I point that out is it is remarkably accessible from a cost perspective. But additionally, the school's committed to have a tuition payment plan, which means if you want to take a course, you don't have to pay it all up front. You could do so in equal installments through the course of the semester. And I wanted to mention also through the benevolent donations of private donors, corporations, foundations, churches, and most recently a 5-year pledge commitment with our new partner, the Coptic Educational Foundation. We have an ACTS Merit Scholarship Fund. We just met as a scholarship committee recently, and we'll be announcing, we just recently notified the students themselves of who the selected winners were. It's a competitive, essay-driven, blind scholarship process. Blind meaning the committee members has no knowledge who the candidates are, and with a scoring rubric and so forth. So that was just completed for fall semester, and we encourage people, if you click on our website, to look at certainly the financial aid section with the payment plan I mentioned, but also the scholarship section. We encourage applicants who meet the eligibility criteria to apply. We are already encouraging and accepting applications for spring semester.
That's wonderful. That's why I also would like to call the viewer who may like to be a student, but also may like as an alternative, or also as a student, but if you have income and you pay tithing to benevolent societies, to the church, to worthy causes, this is a worthy cause. If you visit the website, you can make a donation, either directly on the website with your credit card, or take the address of where to send a check, or make a standing payments from your checking account to the school. Archdeacon, the saint, Archdeacon Habib Gerges, was the dean of the theological school from 1918 to 1951. And he could have done more, much, much more than what he achieved had rich people in Egypt donated to the seminary or the theological school in Cairo. Let us not repeat the mistakes of the past. We could have benefited multiple times from the effort and wisdom and knowledge and dedication of Archdeacon Habib Gerges if we donated enough to his cause, the theological education. Let us do it right this time. Let us dedicate part of our income. If God gave me so much income and my tithing is my income divided by 10%, I dedicate part of that to theological education. Professors may come from out of town. Some of them are volunteers, or the majority are volunteers actually. So the expenses are minimum, but still there are expenses. We have to pay for flights, for aeroplanes, for hotels, for activities like inauguration, like school building. If the school has more funds, can build its own building, buy a property to be housed, to have its own library that the students come and benefit. If every Copt in America pays $1 for $1 per year, $1 donation per year on the average, for this worthy cause, there will be enough money for expansion, for establishment, not just a structure that build on the sand. I mean, I'm talking about the architecture and the physics. Thank God the spirituality is there, the intellectual part is there, the faculty are there, the students are there, but there is no physical building, physical being. Your donation will make a difference. You always wanted to make a difference in the life of the Coptic Church. We are not going to talk about motivations or persecution or rewards in heaven. These are all self-evident. The benefits of acts of the theological school will have global reach, will have so much fruits and rewards to the world. So it's worthy of your contribution. Please go to the website that is shown on the screen, www.actslibrary.org, and look for donation and make some donation. Small, large, annual, monthly, permanent, send a check, pay by Visa card, and may God reward you for your act of mercy, act of participation, so that we all be proud in the future that we established theological education for ourselves, for our children, for the whole world to benefit from in both Arabic, English, other languages, global reach. May God reward you. Sayyidina, I'm so pleased and honored by your acceptance to be a host of this Coptic Civilization program. But I wanted to make you happy by saying that many of the names on your faculty, I was honored by their presence in our program in the past. And they provided richness to the Logos TV program Coptic Civilization. So this episode will crown we have already about 40 episodes in English and about 50 episodes in Arabic. And the viewer can go to YouTube and search for Coptic Civilization, and you will get these 90-some episodes in the past, and many of them are by faculty of Acts.
So maybe it's a course by itself.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are grateful. The next topic is for your grace to talk to us about future projections. What are your goals, your vision of the future of Acts? And I know you have big dreams.
Yes,
and may God make reality or realization to your dreams. What are the dreams?
Well, I used to always hesitant to speak about the future because in the first couple of years, every time I gave a presentation on the school, by the time I have to give another presentation, many things have already been accomplished by the grace of God.
That's wonderful.
And things are going.
Praise God. So that's wonderful.
I would like to say many things. I don't want them to come to fruition. But right now, we're grateful to have very good facilities and library and lecture hall in Claremont. But we found that the number of our students, although we do have a good number that is outside the diocese, the majority is still within the diocese. And so to meet the needs, at least for those students within the diocese, we really are thinking of more than one satellite within Southern California. One towards the north and west of Claremont, and one towards the south. We hope by the end of next year that we'll be able to announce what those places and locations are, because we're finalizing the details within the next couple months. In addition to that, we are also hoping to launch a new program in Christian counseling, and we are in the discussions right now with really one school, but probably we will compare it with 2 or 3. So also we hope to announce about the Masters of Family Therapy or Christian counseling coming soon. We are also planning for the PhD and working with Claremont Graduate University closely to see how that dream can come to fruition relatively soon. And they are restructuring their program as well as we are hoping to be to work with them to have that. We're also going to collaborate with some of our schools in the different parts of the world that I think Dr. Jacquie mentioned earlier, and you mentioned as well, because I'll give you an example. In Rome, for example, they have a Pontifical Institute Orientale that they teach canon law as well as Oriental liturgy. The number of courses that are offered there are vast, but in Coptic liturgy, it's very, very few. So we are trying to work with them that either our students can study there or some of their professors can teach through our school. And we're hoping that we would be able to expand the program or programs broadly, as well as to have an in-depth, so courses can be taught in iconography, which we haven't had before. Dr. Gauda Gabra, we also have, as you know, Trevina, and some of the other students that are interested and have already studied in iconography and hymnology, many of the fields that we don't currently offer, but we're working towards expanding that view as well. Also, the Coptic bishops of North America have been planning for over a year how to have one very strong school in North America, and we're hoping that ACTS will be part of this and have other satellites that would be throughout North America. But this is still in the works for now. So
something like University of California has some 10 or so campuses from Northern California to Southern California. So the Coptic theological schools across America and Canada would collaborate to have one mother umbrella, under one umbrella, but different campuses. That's wonderful. Absolutely. That's wonderful, especially in your first graduating class. You had priests from other dioceses, graduating from St. Athanasius and St. Cyril Coptic Orthodox Theological School in Los Angeles. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And we have received many requests from Canada, from the East Coast, from outside of America, to do more. So we're trying to collaborate as much as we can with our churches, the clergy throughout North America, and thank God it's going very, very well. We see the blessing of God every day.
Yes. Again, I'm amazed at second generation who were born in America to Coptic parents, and they graduate from college in various fields, science, humanities, but then they meet me or I get to know them in person, and they say they are full of enthusiasm to study theology, to study Coptic patristics, to study Coptic history, to study Coptic diaspora. And the presence of ACTS makes these amazing people find a home to serve and to learn from for mutual benefit, and that leads to the purification of Coptic identity. I meant purification, polishing, growth, establishment, growth in the right direction, and self-examination, self-consciousness of me as a Copt, and knowing my history, my theology, my neighbors, my fellow Copts, my fellow citizens. It's maturity of the human self, and through education and through fellowship, through conversations in the school, because a good part of learning process is conversations among students, not just sitting and learning. So Acts provide all of the above, and that's wonderful. Dr. Hart, what's the projections or strategy for the future, or from the business side, from the administrative side? What is the strategy of the school?
Sure. So I would say that nothing is possible without God, of course. And so the growth of the school has truly had, the permission and the grace of God, and of course the wisdom and the vision, again, as I mentioned, of His grace and His eminence. So if we look at our year-over-year statistics, fall of last year to even fall enrollment this year, and fall enrollment is still active, to your point, and so we encourage our viewers to enroll if you've been inspired or encouraged by this segment. Again, classes start August 28th. It's not too late to enroll. We've seen enrollment double. We also have in the pipeline doubling of our graduates. Now, of course, it was a small number last year, so doubling means going from about 7 to about 14. We recognize that, but nonetheless, we have twice the count for our graduation, on track for graduation. Each one of our students has an academic advisor to kind of navigate their coursework to see if they're on track with graduation and the like. Speaking of which, if your viewers would like to come to the graduation and experience that firsthand, we encourage you to save the date. It will be June the 3rd at the Claremont campus. So that save the date will also be on our website, but June 3rd, 2018. So we encourage you to come and so forth. To your point also, if people are interested in donating as we grow the school, we are today not necessarily investing in buildings and libraries simply because we're trying to direct most of the funds to programs so that we can underwrite tuition and other costs for students. To your point, we kind of house from a leasing perspective with prestigious universities, and we'll have satellite branches like His Grace has said and so forth, but we do want to invest in more access for more people. So you'd be delighted and inspired and touched by the requests that we get. So students from Ethiopia who want to deepen their the knowledge of the Orthodox faith and do not have a similar school or even a remotely accessible school. And so they are, armed with a laptop, getting online to learn directly, again, with world-renowned faculty. The same even with Egypt. It was very, very touching when someone shared recently that we now have the ability to kind of give back to our homeland, so to speak, where people locally in Egypt, for whatever the reasons or the obstacles or the challenges, aren't able or don't have access locally, can learn through the school, as well as a variety of other countries and locations globally, as mentioned. So we invite you to join kind of the movement to grow the school as a student, as a donor, as if you would like to, potentially teach for the school or volunteer in some capacity. So feel free to visit our website. Let us know what your interests are. We would love to talk with you. And together we can co-create this really amazing vision for the future.
That's wonderful. That is really great. Again, I encourage the viewer to go to and visit the website and just absorb it, enjoy your time. By the way, you can also see photographs of previous events and pictures of faculty, pictures of meetings. For example, when the course was conducted, field course in Egypt, as His Grace mentioned, you see photographs of such courses and meetings with His Holiness Pope Tawadros II, and so on. We have a gem in Los Angeles, but with global reach, with global ministry in Arabic and in English, and accessible from anywhere in the world, from Siberia to China to the Gulf states to Alexandria, Aswan, South America, Australia. Reachable from everywhere. And the knowledge of the gospel, the knowledge of the Bible, the knowledge that our forefathers, Origen, Saint Clement of Alexandria, Saint Athanasius, and his mentor and his theological teacher, Saint Anthony, Saint Cyril, a host of 2,000 years of theologians, of teachers, of educators, and we have benefited from so much treasures and richness over 2,000 years. We are the children of the martyrs, and some of us are actually martyrs. Why did they offer their blood for the love of Christ? There must be a reason. To discover that reason, we need to study the 2,000 years of Coptic spirituality, Coptic civilization, Coptic liturgy, Coptic monasticism, Coptic history of martyrdom. Your Grace, please, we are, if you graciously give us a concluding remark, and it's just a wonderful occasion, a wonderful opportunity of talking in this episode about the theological school in Los Angeles.
Well, I thank you for inviting me and encouraging me throughout for maybe a couple years to come.
Yes.
And I really feel this is not just a work that we do, not just an activity or a project, but its goal is really to deepen our understanding of the Holy Trinity, our understanding of the Church, our love for God, our service to the world, in many ways. It's very similar to the lighthouse of Alexandria, the famous lighthouse, where it gave light to the ancient world and was a model for saving the little boats or the large boats that were coming into the harbor so that they wouldn't hit anything or be damaged. And always the teaching in the Church is the same, is that bright light, which is the light of God, which gives light to every man coming into the world. And we hope that this school is one way, so that the light of the teaching, whether it be of the gospel, of the liturgy, of the faith, of the fathers, of the history, that can really be and continue to be a source of light. Because, as I mentioned, many of the other schools or places or other churches, if we use that name very liberally, who are teaching, but the light of the gospel now is being corrupted. The purity of its teaching is very hard to find, and we need to invest time, effort, energy, money, so that our children in the coming generations will be able to benefit and discover on their own the riches of the Church. And I feel this great opportunity, not just to study, but to contribute to that heritage which we received, to pass it to the coming generations as faithfully and as honestly as we can.
Thank you so much, Your Grace.
Thank you.
You have been so generous and gracious, and I'm grateful and blessed and honored.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me always to be.
Also, Dr. Jacquie Hart, thank you so much for being with us and contributing to this episode. Do you have a word to conclude, or?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been such a blessing, not just to be on your show, but to humbly work with His grace, the entire team. I'd like to recognize Jessica and Mina in working with Acts Administration, all of our faculty, the Board of Trustees, of course, that you are one, Georgette and Safwat Farag, who are tireless servants, not just in their church, but giving selflessly at Acts. May the prayers of all the saints protect and guide and guard every member of the people that I mentioned, everybody that has come. I always call His grace the Pied Piper. People run and race to Him every time He speaks anywhere in the world, and it's not without cause. He's just a wonderful, wonderful shepherd. We're so grateful to have him leading the school, and of course His Eminence. Thank you again for the opportunity to be on your broadcast, and we look forward to your viewers joining the global movement and joining the school. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jacquie Hart, Chief of Staff of the Theological School and minister in many areas around the diocese. And thank you, Your Grace, and so much. And thank you, our viewers, for watching this episode of Logos TV, Coptic Civilization Program. Our title of the program was Acts, a Global Theological School. If I may ask Your Grace to give us a concluding prayer.
Sure. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and God, amen. We bless you, we glorify you, Lord, for all the work that you have given us, that you have shown through us, and continue to work for us, so that your name may be glorified, so that your kingdom may be present in all the ends of the earth, and that we may work for the glory of your name, and wherever we go, whatever we do, through the prayers and supplications of the Holy Virgin Mary, Saint Athanasius, and Saint Cyril. We ask you to hear us when we pray thankfully. Our Father who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Through Christ Jesus our Lord. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Your Grace. Thank you, Dr. Hart. Thank you, our viewers. See you in the next episode of Coptic Civilization. I'm Michael Saad.